The film opens with a sequence where we meet Peter Parker, a nerdy and awkward high school student living in Queens, New York. Peter is often bullied and doesn't have many friends apart from his best friend, Harry Osborn. He is in love with his next-door neighbor, Mary Jane Watson, who remains blissfully unaware of his feelings. Peter's class embarks on a field trip to Columbia University's genetics lab, where they witness experiments on genetically modified super spiders. Peter, always passionate about science, eagerly takes photos for the school paper. During the tour, one of the genetically modified spiders escapes unnoticed. In a moment that will change his life forever, the spider bites Peter's hand, injecting him with a unique blend of spider DNA. Peter wakes up the next morning feeling strange, and as he looks in the mirror, he notices that his body has changed dramatically. His once frail physique is now toned and muscular. Confused and intrigued, Peter discovers that his eyesight has improved and he no longer needs glasses. The school day reveals even more amazing changes. When confronted by his bully, Flash Thompson, Peter instinctively defends himself with newfound agility and strength, unintentionally humiliating Flash in front of the entire school. Still struggling with these amazing transformations, Peter begins to explore his new abilities. He realizes he can shoot web-like substances from his wrists and stick to walls. As Peter struggles with his new abilities, he becomes determined to use them to improve his life. He sees an opportunity to make some quick money by participating in an underground wrestling match, hoping to buy a car to impress Mary Jane. Using the name The Human Spider, Peter enters the ring and amazes the audience with his strength and agility, easily defeating his opponent. Despite his victory, the promoter cheats Peter out of the promised winnings, leaving him feeling frustrated and cheated. Disheartened and angry, Peter leaves the arena. On his way out, he witnesses a robbery in progress. The thief, who had just stolen the promoter's money, runs right past Peter. Remembering the promoter's deception, Peter makes the fateful decision not to stop the killer, allowing him to escape. Moments later, Peter's world comes crashing down when he discovers that his beloved Uncle Ben has been shot in a carjacking incident nearby. Rushing to his uncle's side, Peter hears Ben's last words and watches him die in his arms. Consumed by grief and guilt, Peter sets out to find the car fanatic. Using his new powers, he navigates the city and corners the criminal in an abandoned warehouse. To Peter's horror, he realizes that the man who killed Uncle Ben is the same thief he let him get away with earlier that evening. Quick reminder, if you're enjoying the content so far, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. Let's keep exploring together. The carjacker tries to flee, but in the ensuing struggle, he falls through a window to his death. As Peter struggles with the profound loss of Uncle Ben and the realization of his own responsibility, he dedicates himself to using his powers for good. To do this, he must establish a new identity. In his small, crowded bedroom, Peter begins to create a costume that will hide his identity and become a symbol of hope and justice. After several iterations, he finally creates the iconic red and blue costume, complete with web patterns and a mask. Meanwhile, his relationship with Mary Jane grows more complex. Peter yearns to be closer to her, but feels the weight of his secret identity and the dangers it could bring to her life. Despite his best efforts to keep his distance, their bond deepens, and Peter struggles with his feelings for her. The city buzzes with talk of Spider-Man's exploits, and Peter begins to understand the extent of his influence. His journey from an ordinary teenager to a superhero takes on new meaning as he fully embraces his role as the city's protector. Norman Osborn, a brilliant but ambitious scientist and CEO of Oscorp, is under immense pressure to secure a lucrative military contract. Desperate to prove the effectiveness of his experimental performance-enhancing serum, he decides to test it on himself. The serum significantly increases his strength and intellect, but also fractures his sanity, giving rise to his darker alter ego, the Green Goblin. Embracing his new persona, the Green Goblin sabotages Oscorp's competitors and begins a reign of terror in New York City. His first major attack occurs during the city's Unity Day festival. As crowds gather to celebrate, the Green Goblin descends from the sky on his glider, throwing pumpkin bombs and causing chaos. Amidst the pandemonium, Spider-Man arrives to confront this new menace. The two engage in a fierce battle, with Spider-Man rescuing several civilians, including Mary Jane Watson, who finds herself in the midst of the attack. At the same time, Peter's Aunt May struggles with financial difficulties following Uncle Ben's death. Peter does his best to support her, but his erratic behavior and frequent absences create additional stress. Compounding these personal conflicts is Peter's job at the Daily Bugle, where he is constantly berated by the bombastic editor J. Jonah Jameson. Jameson's relentless smear campaign against Spider-Man frustrates Peter, who must endure the editor's tirades while secretly providing him with photos of his alter ego. Jameson's portrayal of Spider-Man as a menace influences public opinion, adding another layer of complexity to Peter's role as a hero. Norman Osborn, fully consumed by his darker persona, becomes obsessed with eliminating Spider-Man. His attacks become more personal and targeted, culminating in a shocking moment during a Thanksgiving dinner at the Osborn residence. Norman, upon seeing a wound on Peter that matches an injury Spider-Man sustained, starts to suspect Peter's true identity, and he becomes fixated on breaking him. He decides to strike at Peter's heart by going after his loved ones. The first step in his plan unfolds when the Green Goblin attacks the Daily Bugle, terrorizing the employees and demanding to know Spider-Man's identity from J. Jonah Jameson. Surprisingly, Jameson protects Peter, claiming he doesn't know who supplies the photos of Spider-Man. The Green Goblin then escalates his assault, capturing Mary Jane Watson and taking her to the Queensboro Bridge. He also sabotages a Roosevelt Island tramway car, endangering the lives of several children. In a heart-wrenching scene, Spider-Man arrives at the bridge, forced to choose between saving Mary Jane or the children. The Goblin gleefully watches, anticipating Peter's torment. In a display of extraordinary heroism, Spider-Man manages to save both Mary Jane and the children, despite the Goblin's relentless attacks. This act of bravery only fuels Norman's hatred, pushing him to more extreme measures. Enraged by Spider-Man's success, the Green Goblin drags him into a final confrontation in an abandoned building. The fight is brutal and intense, with both adversaries using every ounce of their strength and cunning. The Goblin, wielding his advanced weaponry and sheer ferocity, pushes Spider-Man to his limits. The battle sees them crashing through walls and floors, each blow echoing with the weight of their personal vendetta. During the fierce exchange, Norman Osborn's dual identity is laid bare. As the battle rages, he momentarily drops his Goblin persona, pleading with Peter and revealing his true self. He tries to manipulate Peter by appealing to their shared history and his role as Harry's father. However, Peter sees through the deception, understanding that Norman's plea is just another trick. The climax of the fight occurs when the Green Goblin, in a desperate attempt to kill Peter, activates his glider's blades and sends it hurtling toward him. Thanks to his spider sense, Peter dodges at the last moment, and the glider impales Norman instead. In his final moments, Norman begs Peter not to reveal his identity to Harry, aiming to protect his son from the truth of his villainy. With a mix of sorrow and resolve, Peter agrees, acknowledging the tragic end of his once mentor. After what happened, Peter takes Norman's body back to the Osborn mansion, laying him to rest in a way that preserves his dignity. Harry witnesses Spider-Man with his father's body, misunderstanding the situation and vowing revenge against Spider-Man, who he believes is responsible for Norman's death. This sets up future conflict, adding layers of complexity to Peter's already burdened conscience. Peter attends Norman Osborn's funeral, where he is surprised by the gravity of the situation. A somber Harry Osborn attends the ceremony, struggling with his father's death and blaming Spider-Man for the tragedy. Peter, burdened with guilt, watches from a distance, understanding the depth of Harry's pain and the weight of his own actions. Mary Jane Watson, who has become increasingly close to Peter, expresses her feelings for him. Despite the emotional bond they share, Peter is conflicted about their relationship. He knows that being with Mary Jane could put her in danger and is well aware of the risks associated with his life as Spider-Man. Their heartfelt conversation is filled with both hope and melancholy as Peter decides to keep his distance to protect her from the threats that come with his superhero identity. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.